Welcome, everybody, to the StreamGeeks Live. We are live every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And we've converted our live show completely to Helping Your Church Live Stream 2.0, a weekly show where you are invited to join us via Zoom video conferencing so that you can have two-way communications with us during our live broadcast. Why is that so important? Well, think about it. The one-way live broadcasts that you've been doing on Sundays, on Saturdays, the live streams for worship services that have been going out, even Fridays for some of you. It's a one-way broadcast. And quickly, what we've realized during the era of COVID-19, that we really need to have better two-way communication with our communities. It's been an incredible change. And I'm joined with many of you. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. Andy, Chris, Julia, Art, Val, Jim, everybody here, Will, Jose. I'm so excited to have you all here. And we're going to get into some two-way communications, chatting with everybody, answering questions. But I want to start by not only recapping what we've learned over the past 2 weeks from some great houses of worship that have joined us and told us about what they're doing. I also want to share some new things. So first of all, we're going to recap. And we are going to recap the past 2 weeks. We had some really great shows. Then we're going to do a presentation that I've prepared. I've been thinking about all weekend. I love how this show is on a Monday because it's right after Sunday when so many churches have just gotten over their most recent live stream of the week. And it's a great time to share. So we're going to go into a sharing session. We're going to do Q&A, and then we're going to do small group breakout sessions. And this is so important. Because if you look over here to the little diagram I have here, it's going to go over something that I think is so important for houses of worship. Right now, we are live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, say hi in the chat. I see here Kyle Gunderman saying, "Good afternoon, all." Hi, Kyle. Thank you for being my example of a comment on YouTube. We want to have people chatting on YouTube and Facebook, chatting in, asking for prayer requests, getting those notifications through social media about your worship streams that are happening on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But even more important now is having folks join the Zoom meetings that you are hosting so that you can get two-way communications with them, chat with them, work with them, and possibly have what we call breakout sessions. So the ability for folks to break out and maybe do spiritual sharing, maybe do congregation meetings, maybe have a Sunday school teaching session. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to do live breakout sessions. So if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitch, go to the Zoom meeting ID below here, and the password is Monday. So you can get in and learn how to do these spiritual sharing sessions and these small group breakout sessions using Zoom video conferencing. Now, a lot of you have been asking about our graphics that we have here, because in this little window here, it's a nice place to put a pastor. And then in the little window next to us, it's a nice place to put an entire group of people who are in a Zoom meeting. So, for example, like this, right? So as you're doing these Zoom meetings and bringing people in, we wanted to give you these graphics. So you can go to streamgeeks.us/church to get these graphics and a complete explanation of how it's all used. So worked a lot on that. Also, what a lot of you asked for is the PowerPoints. So you can also go to streamgeeks.us/church to get this PowerPoint. Also, if you would like to get a weekly invitation for this meeting, which we're doing every Monday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, just message us in the Zoom chat and we'll put you on the calendar invite so you'll get all of this information sent to you. Now, really quickly, you may know that I wrote a book called Helping Your Church Live Stream. We are shipping these out to any church who would like it for free. I have finally updated it for 2020, and it includes an entire chapter on going beyond live streaming and looking forward to two-way communications in the era of COVID. Basically, everything we're going to talk about today is written down in a chapter of this book, which is a really great episode to check out. Now, I want to review our last two shows. Michael Begeman from the Harmony Church in Austin, Texas joined us, And he was sharing how he uses Zoom video conferencing, and it blew my mind. I'm not going to lie. It blew my mind how he's having worship leaders act as Zoom meeting moderators. He's talking about how to secure these Zoom meetings so that they run smoothly during worship. He's using breakout sessions inside of Zoom to have spiritual sharing sessions. And he's also connecting his audio system to Zoom so that remote participants, wherever they are in the world, maybe coming from a senior center, maybe coming from outside of your local community, they can speak into the church space as we enter this time when there are folks in person at the church and folks who are remote. He's also using Zoom and OBS, and we'll look a little bit about how he's doing that. Our next show, which was last Monday, and both of these shows are available on our StreamGeeks.us page and YouTube, we talked about going beyond live streaming and why two-way communications are so important with remote guests and participants, how to make this event more interactive for those remote guests so that they can be as included as the folks inside of your church, how to connect Zoom to your church audio system, how to engage your online audiences, and how to become a better pastor and connect with people using Zoom. So that was our last 2 weeks. It's been a lot. Today, we're going to talk about the guides and how you can get all of those guides and get all of the presentations and graphics in the updated book. We're going to hopefully give you a fresh look on live streaming and online communications as a means for better communicating online. We're going to take a step back and think about, what is it all about? Why are we doing this? How can we become better communicators and translate what you're so good at doing in person at the church and bring that online as best as possible? How can you become a better presenter and help your pastor if you are a volunteer or a worship leader, and understand the steps toward moving forward? Now, don't forget to ask questions throughout this session, whether you're joining the Zoom meeting below with Password Monday, or you're just asking questions on YouTube and Facebook. Please ask the questions. Here's one here from Diharja. The password is Monday. So, looks like a lot of people are asking for the password. The password is Monday. You would have got that password emailed to you, Luigi, if you signed up for show notifications at StreamGeeks.us. Okay, everybody's got the password now to get in. I also wanted to mention that you should consider joining our Churches That Live Stream Facebook group, and sharing your experiences is so important so you can learn from others. This is a friend of ours, Alex Wilhelm, who's using the brand new PTZ Optics cameras for the first time at his church, and he's super excited about it. He was saying how, how much it's changed the way they do everything. And I'm going to start a screen share here, by the way, so that you guys can see this a little better. So let's recap over the past 2 weeks really quickly. So this new normal in this era of COVID, everyone's spending a lot of time discussing, how do we live stream our meetings and our services to remote participants? With social distancing restrictions being lifted soon, how do we accommodate people in the room as well as remote participants? And if you're just doing a one-way broadcast, that's not a problem. But Michael Begeman and others who we've had on our show have been talking about, and we had a reverend from St. Louis last Monday who came in, and he said, we want more interactivity. There's great conversations going on in Zoom. How can we connect that with the folks who are in the church themselves? And that is what we've gone over. And what have we found? Well, during this COVID-19 pandemic, when we started going online, churches like the Being Consciously Harmony in Austin, Texas, found their communities much larger and more far-flung than they ever knew. And so now they're really trying to include everyone and meet them face-to-face. But how is that done? Well, we've talked about it quite a bit. And the first thing you should do, I apologize, this is cut off a little bit, is you should really think about identifying who are your tech-savvy worship leaders. Let me fix this just a hair. And who can be your communication champions, and make them the hosts or the co-hosts of your meetings so that they can interact with folks. They can engage with them and make sure that they raise their hand. So Michael Begeman here sharing the password. Thank you. Michael is here. Good. I'm glad you're here, Michael, because I'm referencing a little bit of what you've taught me. In fact, Michael came to us with a great idea. He takes his PTZ Optics 20X USB camera, takes an audio output from his mixing board and plugs it into his computer and runs Zoom. So the audio and video are completely synced and synchronized, and he can just run Zoom for his meetings, and that's great. So it's a simple worship streaming solution. Again, this is just recap here. You can control PTZ Optics cameras through Zoom, and Michael shared this with us. I'm going to go through it quickly because it's just a recap of last week, but he's able to plug the audio mixer into the PTZ Optics camera to run Zoom. By introducing an Ethernet switch, he's able to also run OBS to get higher definition video recordings. And now we're talking in the next, that was episode 2, how do we connect that Zoom meeting back into our audio mixer so that everyone can hear what's going on in the Zoom conference in the church? And that has to do with using multiple audio buses. And I actually have some experts here on our Zoom call who can speak to audio mixing and what is done there. Taylor from his church in North Carolina showed us this audio cable, which you can get on Amazon, which takes an XLR output of a audio mixing board and converts it to 3.5. So you can plug it into that laptop into Zoom. That's our recap. Are you guys ready to go further? This is where we're going to take it the next step, and then we're obviously going to jump into Q&A, sharing what everyone else is doing, and then we're going to break out into breakout sessions, which is everyone needs to do that because it's part of what we're sharing today, and I think it's going to be really, really fun. So the high level here, in my opinion, is you leverage live streaming so that you can go outreach on YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitch and the other places, Twitter, right? And you can engage with folks on the live streams so that they can ask questions. And, it's kind of like a catch-all from a notification standpoint. But then you really do kind of want to get them into that Zoom meeting so you can have two-way communications. We are all living in a world of finite time, and we're here together. And it's really an important time when you're doing these spiritual sharings and your worship services. From there is a next step. And for a lot of churches that have 100, 200, 300 members, it's impossible to have meaningful conversations with that many people at once. Zoom has a solution. It's called breakout rooms. We're going to test it today. You're going to see how it works, and we're going to dig into it, and it's perfect for hosting spiritual sharing. From a high level, in my opinion, you use those live stream sections, the Facebook, the YouTube, the Twitter, the LinkedIn, and Twitch, as really a funnel to get people to the Zoom conference where you can really help transform their lives, share the message of God and everything that you're doing with your worship services. And then if you can get them into those breakout sessions in small groups where worship leaders can have a big impact, that is where I believe a lot of the transformations will happen. High level, we're moving from a public space, which is social media, to a private space. And I believe that is what people want. Personal, real communications, not just a one-way live stream on Facebook, right? So we chat on live stream, we join a Zoom meeting, and we get into these breakout rooms. Inside of these breakout rooms, which we're going to demonstrate how they work, it's not a bad idea to break them into groups of 4. That's a very small group. It's a manageable group. And you can pre-assign these breakout rooms. So you can make sure that there's a worship leader or some type of host of that room inside of each, so that the people that are coming into the rooms are maybe, you don't know who's going to be joining that Sunday, but you do know who your worship leaders are, and they can be assigned to be in charge of each one of those breakout sessions. What is a breakout session? What is a breakout room? Yes, Julia, we should bring Matt Benner in to help. That's no problem. A breakout room is an option inside of OBS and inside of Zoom, and it needs to be enabled. So we'll talk about how to enable it, how it works, and then we're just going to go ahead and do it. And it's going to be really fun. So breakout rooms, it's a feature of Zoom. And we're going to go ahead and do this so it's really going to be clear. But you do need to go into your zoom.us dashboard, log in, and whoever is the administrator for your Zoom session needs to click that little blue toggle there and enable it. So we need to enable that. The other little option you have is to allow the host to assign participants to breakout rooms when scheduling. So if you have worship leaders that you want to be in specific rooms waiting for people, tick that box as well. Now, when you leave this Zoom conference, we have 40 odd people here today. So that means we're going to do 10 rooms of 4. That's exactly what I wanted, actually. You're going to see a little button here that says joining breakout room, and it's going to give you the name of the room. And when you do that, you're going to leave the main room and you're going to join a breakout room. And so that's what you're going to see for just a moment. Now, you see this little button here that says breakout rooms. That's the button that I'm going to click as the host. I'll share that so everyone can see it. But that is the button we're going to click to be able to open the breakout room options. You'll see that I've created breakout rooms, and for the 40 of us here in the Zoom room, I have named these rooms based on cities in the states in the United States. So I'm hoping that maybe we can organize this so people from Texas can actually meet together, for example. But it doesn't have to be that way. It can be random, or it can be assigned manually, as you can see here. So we're going to create 10 rooms of 4. And we can move people from within different rooms. We can exchange people within rooms. We can even do a countdown timer. So we could say, guys, everybody, there's 2 minutes left until the breakout rooms are going to come back to the main room. As the host, you have full control. You can also broadcast a message to everyone. And that's another way, we can talk about how to use that. So that's kind of an example of how it works. And we're going to jump right into this, but I just wanted to explain, if you have 200 participants, there is a maximum amount of breakout rooms you can have, which is 50 breakout rooms. So 200 is kind of a sweet spot, because if you want to do those breakout rooms of 4, you would have 200 people, 50 rooms, 4 people per room. Now, if you have the large meeting add-on, you can have up to 500 participants, but you can only have 20 breakout rooms with 25 people each. So there are some limitations. And then we're going to get to a little bit more I wanted to talk about later, but I think right now is the time that we definitely jump into these breakout rooms. Julia, I'm going to start with you by unmuting you to make sure you're good to go.
Hi, so I think it's a great point, Paul, to bring up, because since you set up the meeting, I don't see the option actually.
Okay, so only the host has access to the breakout rooms. And that is something that I wish that because I made you co-host. So I kept the host just because I actually need to show this button here. So what I'm going to do, and by the way, everybody, I'd love to know where you guys are from, because I'd like to organize everyone in places that they're from. And anyone who has questions, who wants to, it's kind of like a group Q&A right now. So anyone who wants to raise their hand and chat, let's do a group Q&A, and then we're all going to test the breakout rooms together. So Julia, I'm not sure if anyone has any questions that we should answer now, but I wanted to go ahead and show everybody this breakout room area. So I understand.
We've got some people from Philadelphia. That would be a popular one.
Okay, let's create a Philadelphia.
Carolina,
room.
Kansas.
Oh, we have Kansas?
California. We do. We have Kansas.
Okay, let's create a California room.
Carolina.
So you guys can see here that I have 10 rooms right now, which is perfect because we have 40 participants, so we've got 10 rooms, and I'm just kind of starting to figure out where everybody's from. Bill's from Kansas City, Missouri, so we've got Kansas on there for you, Bill. Tom's from New York. We've got a room for New York. We've got a room for Boston. And now that I'm thinking about this, Julia, I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to do just random in the beginning, because there's no way that we're going to get 4 from each one of these cities.
It may be a little tricky to manage. That's true. So many other fun applications for this, though, Paul. When you think about it, with virtual weddings today, you could even set up like kind of tables this way to do in breakout rooms.
Well, does anyone, and I agree, Julia, I'm really excited about this, actually. This is something, here's a question. Has anyone ever been in a breakout room before we do this? Because for me, my first time was like a week ago. So I hear Eric. Eric, would you mind saying something about your experience with breakout rooms?
More than happy to. So I think I'm unmuted. So Eric from Michigan, the Detroit area. And in our worship, we do our virtual coffee hour this way, breaking up into small rooms. Some of the things to remember, again, only the host has the ability to make the rooms and to do anything with the rooms. And they can pop in and out of the rooms to check in on people. One of the other things we've discovered with large groups is there is an option to put people into a room or let them accept it. And I have found that with our older congregants, to just put them in the room, it means less buttons that they have to push to try to remember to go into that room and then accept the invite to come back. And it just makes things a little bit easier. The breakout rooms have been invaluable for all of our ministries, whether it's in learning or in worship, to be able to have small groups, to be able to share with each other. The other thing to remember is that if you do an automatic breakout room and put people into rooms, and then you come back and you want it to redo that automatically, you have to reset it. Otherwise, it'll put everyone back into the same rooms that they were already just in.
I was wondering about, thank you for sharing that, because I'm planning an event where we'd like to have the rooms be able to rotate, but we don't want the same people to be in the same rooms. So could you tell me, so see, this says recreate all rooms right here. Would that be the button that I want to push to randomly make everyone go?
Yes. Because what you do is it will recreate those same rooms. It's actually in another spot, and I just don't remember it because I don't have it here in front of me.
Okay. And there's some options here. Move
That's
all
the one. That's the move. That means that people don't have to accept it.
Okay.
They will automatically be moved into those rooms and brought back in.
And then it says allow participants to return to the main session at any time. We'll leave that on. Close after 30 minutes. That's fine. We're only planning on doing maybe like 5 minutes.
It's 30 seconds. That is when you send the, I'm going to close the rooms, it will count down that you have, and you can set that for whatever time you want. It's either 60 seconds or 30 seconds, but that's an automatic. When you hit close, it allows people to finish their thoughts, and a little timer will show up. This room will close in, and it'll count down the time. And so you can set what that's going to be.
I see. Well, that's perfect. So if everybody's ready, we're about to do this. So I just want to make sure everyone's prepared. This is part of this experience today, and then we'll come back and talk about potential uses for it. So if everybody's ready, we're just going to spend 5 minutes together in breakout rooms getting to know each other. And these are it's going to be completely random. And then there'll be a 60-second countdown timer after 5 minutes. All right, everybody, let's do it. So I'm going to hit this recreate button, and we're going to go ahead and automatically assign everyone to these breakout rooms. Let's do it. There we go. Now I'm going to, okay, so that's done, but I haven't opened the rooms yet. So I'm going to go ahead and open all rooms. Everyone is being transferred to the rooms, as you can see now. So everyone has been transferred, and it looks like I'm going to go ahead as the guest here. Now, am I in this breakout room here? Yes.
I guess you appear in every breakout room. Would that be the case? Because you're in mine, and I'm with Paul Travers, Jim, and Marty.
I see that.
So this is Paul. When we've used it at our church, what I found, and I don't know if this is true here, but the host is in one room and that's it, and then they don't have a view to other rooms. Is that, Paul? Is that what you're seeing as well? Because that's what we found out, that if the host wanted to really run things from where they were, they had to stay out of the room and then run things that way. But if they joined a room, they didn't know what was going on in other rooms as well. I don't know if that's what you guys have seen as well, or.
Well, okay, yeah. So right now I'm seeing that I am in this room. I have the option to leave this room. Mm-hmm. So there's a little leave breakout room here in the bottom right. Now, this is a little goofy though, to be honest, because I'm logged in twice. So this room that I'm with you in now, Paul, and Julia and Marty and Jim, this is the second computer that I'm part of.
Gotcha.
So this isn't the one that you were hosting from.
Exactly.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So the one I'm hosting from is over here, and I'm actually in, I'm in 2 rooms at once. So, it's kind of cool though. And I can broadcast a message to everyone if I need to. Everyone is able to go back to the main room if they need to. So from here I can see that we have, so PJ is unassigned. I'll assign him to breakout 1 with us real quick, just as an example. And then PJ should be in with us now. And then I can broadcast a message. I'll just say, hey, everybody. I'll just say, we're going to close the rooms in 2 minutes. That sound good? So Paul, since I have you, why don't you tell me a little bit about how you guys are using it?
Yeah, so I'm from a small New England church in Chelmsford, Massachusetts. We hopped on Zoom kind of right the first week of COVID, as it were. And so we use it on Sunday. So we actually do a recorded service first at 9:30, and then we have a live service that we do at 10:30, which is more interactive. The way that we've used breakout rooms is on our Thursday night, we have a prayer night. And so for that's going to be smaller. And so I feel like we've done a good job with the internal folks because we've just used Zoom. We don't use it in live streaming. And I feel like that's where we could use the help is more on the live streaming side to get that public, to get it kind of out there. Because, I feel like we've been good stewards with the people that we have, but we haven't reached many new people, except via here and there people joining our Thursday night prayer service, which has been really great. We've used breakout rooms. We've used other things. So this has been great. Thank you.
Well, if you're using breakout rooms already, you are way ahead of the curve. But I agree. That's been kind of my thought that you'd be probably surprised how many new people will join into these breakout rooms and the Zoom rooms when you start live streaming them. And I'm happy to help you with that. In fact, we can ship you this book for free. I just updated and added a whole chapter on what we're doing with the Zoom breakout rooms and everything. But this has been so much fun. I think I'm going to close this room and we're going to go back and just hear what everyone has to think.
Thank you.
Cool. No problem. Here we go. All right. I'm closing all rooms. So now let's see what happens here. So this computer, which is in this room, is getting this little message saying that basically the breakout will be closed in 45 seconds. Everyone's all manually leaving the breakout room here with this little button. So I'm going to leave this one as well. Return to main session. Now I'm getting this button, this thing that returns us to the main session. Okay, gallery view, speaker view. All right. What'd you guys think? Let me make sure that everybody can unmute themselves. All right, I unmuted everybody. I'm going to mute everybody real quick. And I'm going to allow participants to unmute themselves. All right, everybody, you guys can unmute yourselves if you'd like. What did you guys think?
Okay.
Hi,
Everyone
Andy.
is muted.
How's it going? Can you hear me, Andy?
I take it we're in another room, not in the main room.
We're in another room.
We're
Anybody
back in the main room, but we have the ability to speak to each other.
Is anybody from Texas besides me and Andy?
I'm up here in New York.
No, that's not the Texas group.
I'm in Texas. It's gloomy here.
That's a whole new country.
We are back in the main room.
Oh, okay.
Tom, where are you from in New York?
Syracuse.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you got the gloom and doom out there as well. We had 2 inches of snow yesterday or day.
Yeah, where are you?
Saratoga.
Oh, Saratoga, yeah. It's a Skinny Atlas for me outside of Syracuse.
Beautiful place, Skinny Atlas.
Oh, I love the lakes.
Well, you could have our weather at 97 degrees right now.
I'll take
I
it.
will take it.
We'll take it.
I'll take just a piece of that in Chicago.
Hey,
So,
Tim, I'm in Chicago too. What part are you in?
I am in the far northern suburbs. Our church is in Grays Lake.
Oh yeah.
I'm in the western suburbs.
Okay. I'm in
sorry,
Skokie.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Who's in the Webster suburbs? Who's that?
This is Jim Schlechter in the western suburbs.
Cool.
How you doing, Jim?
Hi.
My alma mater's Wheaton College. Went to I did AV out at Willow Creek for the 4 years I was there. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm in Wheaton or in Warrenville. I'm sorry.
Okay, great. Yeah,
I grew up in Wheaton.
nice.
Great experience if you're at Willow Creek.
Yeah, it was,
been there a number of times.
Back 92 to 96. So I'm dating myself, but it was a great time to be there.
I played drums at the North Shore campus for a while.
Nice.
So guys, I wanted to share a couple more things, but I wanted to start by getting
So I
everyone's
saw Paul in here. I
reaction.
assume he's going to take over.
Yeah, I don't know where the
He's
main
there, but
session's
he's muted. Yeah.
Oh, I'm muted.
Yeah, it's interesting that we can all talk, but we're in the main session.
So is this
Okay,
a
I
main room?
see.
Is this a
There we go.
bigger room with the other ones still, rather
Okay.
than the four?
Yeah. Here he is.
So I got muted there, coming back and forth. So thank you everybody for doing that. That was a lot of fun. I learned a few things myself there. Let's start. I just want to quickly ask everybody, and I think the best way to do this is to have people raise their hands, if that's okay with you guys. And we'll just unmute those who raise their hand. But who has a good idea of how to use these breakout rooms for worship, for small group sharing and things of that nature? I'm interested to hear what you guys think.
Yep.
There we go. Sorry. So I'm just going to check in the chat room here. We have to do a little Zoom moderation. I apologize. Here we go. Let's close that. I got to open up the chat room. Okay. Cole, why don't we start with you? 4 participants have raised their hand. Sorry. Okay, Michael, let's start with you. How you doing, Mike? There we go. You should be unmuted. Is Michael here? All right. How about Eric Travis? Paul, unmute yourself. Am I muted? Oh, I muted myself. Sorry. Michael, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Sorry, I don't have anyone helping me here, so I'm falling a little behind. Michael, what do you think? Michael's been with us a couple weeks now. This is our 3rd week together, Michael. I'm starting to become friends with you here.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so the way that we are looking at using this is for an after-service fellowship time. So outside of our sanctuary, we have fellowship hall. It has been our tradition in the past. Everybody goes out and we have, coffee and, snacks to eat, and people hang out there and talk to each other. And so there's a typical fellowship from after church. Well, a lot of people are missing that kind of interaction. So what we're planning on doing is after the main service, telling anybody who wants to have a fellowship time with other folks just to stay on. We'll give people an opportunity to exit, and after about 10 minutes, we're going to hit the button and just randomly assign people into 10-person groups, send them into a breakout room, and they'll be able to they'll probably see people who they know, they'll see people who they don't know, they'll be able to talk about what's going on in their life or some aspect of the church service. we'll give them maybe 15 minutes to have that conversation, and then we'll shut things down. But it's just an opportunity for people to connect with one another after the service.
That, I think, is probably the most important way to do this, I would say, as far as, let me pin your video here. I would say that's the easiest starting point for using this, is to use the service as a way to gather everyone, but let people know that it's not over after the service. And, with regular church isn't over after the service. There's the coffee and the breakout. There's the breakout sessions, right? The real in-person breakout sessions. So I think that's a very natural way to use it. Thank you, Michael. I had a couple other people here who had some ideas. Travis was next on our list. Let me go through here. Actually, sorry, Coleman. I'm going to go ahead and lower your hand and unmute you. How are you doing, Coleman?
I'm doing well. I hope you are.
I'm doing good.
We used breakout rooms for a church dinner. We had an hour-long church dinner that was a Zoom meeting, and we randomly assigned everybody to 20-minute breakout rooms 3 times. And we had 4 families maybe per room, just to have social time together. Some of us were actually eating at our own houses, and others chose to eat before or after, but that worked out quite well.
I love that idea, and it's something that we all miss so much, is the fellowship. So I love hearing that. Glenn, I'm going to unmute you, Glenn. Why don't you go ahead and let us know what's your idea on using these breakout rooms?
Well, we're doing our first Zoom Bible class this Wednesday, and I can see where we would want to do some breakout rooms for private sessions between people for discussion. So
it's interesting to hear the different sizes of groups. 4 seems like a nice one, but we've heard from Coleman, who's saying more like groups of 10. And I think that's what Michael said as well, groups of 10. Probably no more than 10, I would think, for these types of meaningful conversations where you can really get to know people. Can I ask you, Michael, with a group of 10, what is your thoughts on that size for a group size of a breakout session?
I think it works really well because you always have introverts and extroverts. You have, but an introvert may not want to share, may not want to take up a lot of space, but that doesn't mean they don't want to hang out with other people, listen to what they have to say, have a cup of coffee, and just be present to the conversation. So, in a group of 10, you usually have 3 or 4 people who have a lot to say, and other people who are willing to just sit there and be in relationship with them.
I'm so glad you said that, because that 4 is seems to be like the minimum that Zoom says. You can do 50 groups of 4 with a regular license, but you got to account for the fact that not all 4 of those people are going to be extroverts. I think 10 gives you a much better chance. I don't know what the statistics are of how many people are introverts versus extroverts, but you got to have at least 2 or 3 there to keep the conversation going.
Right, exactly.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I think there was one other person that had their hand raised here, which was Chris Bailey. Chris, how are you doing? And then we have Paul Travers as well. Hi, Chris.
Hey there. Just great suggestions from everybody. As a musician and a worship leader myself, we are missing the collaborative, aspect of worship and worship itself. You could do a private breakout just for worship musicians, leaders, that to share some new songs. There's some great new music actually being created out of this pandemic. And it's a great way to share those, grab a guitar, grab a keyboard, and maybe just have some sort of collaborative working on a song. We're really missing that part, just for me personally.
Wow. That is so important. And it reminds me of, some of the more contemporary churches that are, it's so central to their services, the music part of it. We saw at the worship summit we had not long ago, so many great churches came to us with their music. So inspirational. I'm glad you said that. It's such a great idea. Paul Travers, I see you have your hand raised. What are you thinking, Paul?
Well, so my question was around breakout rooms. So we had we used it mostly for a Thursday night prayer night. We have a smaller number of people. It's easier to send to that end, right? To send the people that didn't necessarily want to talk, and it's easier to be like send a host, like not a Zoom host, but just hey, you're talkative, go talk to these people. So we haven't done it as much on the after Sunday. We have, about 100 or so people, different families join. So is there a way, in breakout rooms to kind of have your cake and eat it too, right? So I wanted the manual nature of sending one person to host each room. So maybe 10 rooms. But on the other hand, I just want to randomize the rest, because to me, to be able to have to then, pick and choose each person of the 100 or so people would be, kind of a little bit we could do it, and maybe it's possible. I don't know if there's programmatic ways to do it, but I don't know does anybody know of a way to do that, to like send a host for each room and then just kind of say, hey, Zoom, you do the rest.
Well, I might be able to play around with this really quickly and take a quick peek. So I believe what you can do, looking at it now, is, and I don't know if you can see can you see my screen barely? Maybe I could spotlight it for you.
Yeah.
But what I believe you could do is you have to there's two things, and I haven't tested everything yet. But one thing you can do if you're on the Zoom dashboard, obviously, is you can enable breakout rooms, right? And we looked at that other checkbox that says pre-assign specific people to specific rooms. So I haven't done this, and I'd like to do it next Monday. Every Monday, we're testing new things and trying this out. So next Monday, if you can join us, because we really do need people to join us to even test this. So if everyone's continuing to come, it really does help everybody to have this community together socially to test all of this. But I believe that you can pre-assign people to specific rooms and then randomize everyone else, which is what you're asking to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
I believe you can do that, and I'd be happy to test it next Monday. We would just have to figure out who those people are that we're going to pre-assign. And then the other thing that I'm seeing here, Paul, is that everyone was random for these 10 rooms that we have here. So I see that everyone is assigned to those rooms, and I can click an exchange button. So I believe that if someone wasn't in the right room, you could exchange one person for, see how this other thing comes out here?
Oh, yeah.
So let's say, and I can actually zoom into this, make this a little bigger for you to see. So let's say you've pre-assigned everyone, and your talkative people who are your worship leaders didn't get into the right places. You just click those people really quickly, and they should know, hey, you're going to get randomly assigned somewhere, but we're going to do a little moving around really quickly. And then you click the exchange button, and you exchange. And so first you start by clicking, all right, this person over here, I need to move them to the other person. So you're basically swapping people.
Great.
From rooms. So that's only the host can do that. So at a minimum, I know you can do that. I know that's a little bit, I think it's better to pre-assign them. And I'm pretty sure you can do that. I've just never done it. But I saw the feature.
We can test it out. That's awesome. Thank you. I like the ability to trade people as well. Maybe for a player to be named later or something.
I know it's actually kind of funny. It's like we could do a lot of horse trading here. Well, thank you for your question. I've had that same question. So let's definitely test that out next Monday.
Thanks.
So Tim, I see you have your hand raised here. Do you have a question?
Yeah, mine is it's that after service fellowship, and we are using Facebook to do our streams. So 2 services, an early and a later contemporary one. And after the contemporary one, our praise band tends to just play some music with a slide up, to sort of ease out of worship. And what we've been doing lately is flipping the cameras back on, because people are hanging around and they're trying to have fellowship. But Facebook isn't real good for doing that. You know, you can like and that kind of stuff, but you can't do a whole lot of interaction. So I've been considering, is there a way for us to move over to a Zoom meeting? I'm not sure we need breakouts, but I don't know how we would seamlessly move for non-technical folks from Facebook over to Zoom into something where, like this, we can see everybody and then do some interaction. Has anybody considered trying to do something like that?
So over the past 2 weeks, that's really been the central topic of what we've been talking about. And I don't know if it looks like Michael's here. Michael, do you want to share a little bit about how you guys are achieving something similar to that? Let me see if I can take it if you want, but you guys are doing something very similar.
Well, I think the question that was it Tim? I think what Tim was asking was kind of getting from one online platform to another. So getting people from Facebook over to Zoom for sharing. You know, we have had a similar speed bump in that we use the Zoom webinar platform for streaming our worship service. And it appears that the breakout rooms are actually limited to the Zoom meeting platform, not the webinar. So to do this breakout thing currently, what we are having to do is at the end of the worship service, which we are using the webinar for, because it gives us greater control over what it is that people see. We're putting up the Zoom meeting ID so that if people want to engage in fellowship after the service, they can go from the webinar, exit the webinar, join the Zoom meeting, and from there we do the breakouts. So it's not a, I wish we could hit a button and have it automatically happen. But.
Right, yeah, you could have a link with the Zoom ID embedded in it that they could just click it directly go to, because people trying to figure out, oh, I got to go over here to Zoom, but then I got to get the ID and I got to come in and the security and all that kind of stuff will lose 75% of the crowd.
One of the things that we're doing here is we have the Zoom meeting ID on the live stream, right? So like part of the live stream has the ID. I think it could be even better if you had a page on your website with just a big button, you know, and that button would just be there. And Michael and I talked about, you know, you can have a password on the meeting like we do here for security purposes, but at the same time, you know, that password is just one more speed bump. So, you know, Michael and I have talked about just handling security from a good moderation perspective, having a good moderator there to mute and unmute people and restrict people from screen sharing and things of that nature in the Zoom meeting. But I do think that, you know, you're on the right path here, Tim. I mean, Facebook is an amazing platform for getting the attention of your audience online, but getting them into the Zoom session is the next hurdle. And I think it's 100% possible. And it has to do with old school stuff like email, text messages, phone calls, letting people know that this is what you're doing. I don't think you should give up on Facebook because you're kind of got that going and it's still good. But letting people know that there's because the other part of this, and you should go back and watch our last 2 episodes. But essentially, in the past 2 episodes, we've talked about, well, what happens when only half of the congregation is in the church and the other half is online? How do they communicate? And so over the last 2 shows, we've talked about what does that take to implement? And then how do you tune your audio system so that when you do have a question from someone on the Zoom conference, how do they ask that question directly into the church without creating a feedback loop so that they can speak directly to the pastor the same way that someone in person can?
Okay, I'll go back and take a look at those. Thank you. Yeah, I haven't seen those.
Yeah, take a look and join us next Monday. And we're always going to be doing these Q&As. And I think we did a really good job of explaining, you know, how does the audio routing happen to allow for these Zoom conferences to have more presence in the sanctuary during services.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. Looks like Jim has a question. How you doing, Jim? Thank you for asking the question.
Paul, thank you very much. Like Michael, we're using Zoom Webinar for the service. And we're for the first week, we're planning for Sunday to transition to meetings. So we're going to use a button on our website. What I like about webinar is that for our people, we have it set up so they're pre-registering for the worship service. So we have their email contact. We send out a link to all those folks, and we're going to send out a little bit of instruction. I think we used a feature in Zoom webinar this week, polling, because we wanted to take a temperature check of what we could expect if we floated this by people. And we got about 60, we got 50% saying a definite yes, they would participate. 10% said they need more information, probably about the technical part, et cetera. And then the others said no, for whatever reason, not comfortable with technology, they don't want to be seen on camera, whatever the reason may be. So it gave us it was an aha for us, but also a scary moment, because we said, okay, now we have to have a host in each, or somebody in each of these breakout rooms to kind of facilitate the discussion, not to lead, but just to, draw people out, or, just keep things going. So this has been very helpful in that respect. And I think some of my questions that I had going into this question were answered by previous speakers. So thank you very much.
Well, it's my pleasure, and some of the things you said there kind of brought to mind some of the things we've been talking about. Obviously, webinar is really good because you can just kind of control exactly what people see, which is really nice. But in the meetings, you have the ability to see the other people, which is the other side of all of this. So the one-way broadcasting is great. The two-way communication is better in a lot of respects. And as you said, some people don't want to turn their camera on. Something that I think it's something that people will become more familiar with, and they will become more comfortable with in the future. And many of us are here on the front lines with folks who are, digital migrants, right? Unfamiliar with a lot of this technology. But the statistics are clear that 93% of communication is nonverbal. So I like to, and I am trying to figure out what the best situation is for Zoom, but you can opt to say, to allow participants to have their camera on when they come in. And that's because Zoom understands this. Video is part of communications. It's 93% of it. It's not all verbal. It's seeing the person, their facial expressions, where they are, who they are. You can immediately tell how old they are, maybe a few things about them without them saying anything. So it is difficult to get people to become comfortable with sharing their cameras. What I've seen really great worship pastors do on social media and through those instructions that they're sending out is giving people some really warm and fuzzy information about how to get ready for church online, right? It says, like, take a shower, get ready, get dressed for church, right? Like you normally would. Get everybody to sit around the television, get everybody, into the mood for this, so that by doing all of that, they're not in their pajamas. They don't have their hair in a mess. They don't want to not turn their camera on. We got to get them all the way to the point where they're so comfortable that turning on the camera is like a no-brainer, like they want to do that. That's a whole mess right there of where people are today, comfortable, familiar, technology, all of that is a difficult process. But I have seen some worship leaders do the extra instructions, as you said, to prepare people for this. And obviously a consistent schedule. This is all going to start falling into place, I think, for a lot of people. So thank you for the question. I'm going to unmute Tom now. Hi, Tom.
How you doing? I have a bunch of questions, but I'm just going to ask three really quick about what we're doing right now. About the breakout rooms. Can attendees pick their own room? What happens when latecomers join the meeting and everyone else is already in a breakout room? And do I need a specific version of Zoom? Right now, are you using the free version, Pro, Basic?
Okay, let's do them one at a time here. So yeah. I have done meetings where people can join their own rooms, okay? But you must make the people a host of the meeting, which really just gives everybody too much control. So I was in an alumni get together with 20 of my really good friends from college. And we said, hey, we're going to make these groups of like, it was different parts of the campus that we all kind of wanted to reminisce about. I think there was like 50 of us. So we needed to breakout rooms because there's too many of us to communicate properly. So we created 5 or 10 breakout rooms, but we had to make every single person a co-host or a full host, I believe, in order to do that. So you can create alternative hosts, but it's not ideal. So really, it does kind of need to be randomized and managed. And we looked, that kind of goes to Paul's question about these breakout rooms and kind of exchanging people and reorganizing them. Or, by the way, we mentioned this, pre-assigning people to breakout rooms, which you could do, worship leaders, talkative people, extroverts, things of that nature. So we have that. Now, as far as Zoom, this is just a Zoom Pro feature. So obviously with Zoom Basic, you're going to get limited by 40 minutes. So you're going to need to pay that $15 a month for the Zoom Pro. So $15 a month gets you this functionality, and then you get all these awesome breakout rooms. So as a church, you can have one license. On Sunday mornings, you can have a breakout room of 25 people, which is the maximum for a breakout, doing a Sunday service or a Sunday school teaching. If you've got different grades of Sunday schools, you can have 50. Or well, I guess there is limits, and I can share the limits, but it's regardless. It's a lot of people in a lot of rooms. Now, what was the second question in there? Did I answer all of them?
About the 2 of them you answered. The 3, the last one to answer would be, what happens with latecomers to the meeting when everyone else is in the breakout room?
So the latecomers will join the main room, not the, and you know what we didn't get a chance to talk about yet, which I think it's finally time. So I'd like to just share something that I've prepared, the second half of my presentation, actually. Just really quickly, this is kind of like where you're headed with like, I think what it's all about in some ways, which is we want to obviously get the attention, right? And I think that social media really helps with that. We get the attention of the folks who are on social media. We get them to engage a little bit. Maybe that's passive. Maybe they're just chatting on Facebook. It's a little bit of engagement. There's the education part of it, right? And that is the service, the message that you're having. Maybe a little bit of entertainment. But when we get to the higher levels of reaction and desire and commitment and changing contexts and achievement and aspiration, creating an unforgettable experience, even a transformation in someone, that really requires, two-way communication. And it requires these breakout rooms to really get into those spiritual sharing sessions. And I'm not going to go over all of this, but there's something I wanted to share here. These 4-person rooms, these kind of creative rooms, there's a term called World Cafe, virtual World Cafes. And they're 4-person breakout rooms where you rotate every 20 minutes or so and people get to meet each other. Now, Michael, you've been so helpful, Michael Begeman. Thank you so much for joining. Because I agree that 4 people, you might not get 4 talkative people. So I think groups of maybe 10 are more realistic. But the other thing I wanted to mention that does get back to your question, Tom, is that you can also have something called open space collaboration rooms, which essentially are separate Zoom rooms. So after the service, you might actually have 4 separate Zoom rooms running. And so those can have their own sets of breakout rooms, or they don't, or maybe not. But that is another way to do it. And it's an interesting way to do it because then you can have worship leader A, B, C, D with their own rooms, right? And people come in and it's more like you can be a social butterfly and move between the rooms as different conversations are happening. And then the difference is that gives the attendee the ability to move between rooms because they're just moving between Zoom rooms, literally. They're just typing in a new ID and leaving one meeting and entering a new one. So those are just some of the things we've been playing with. And I hope that every Monday, a lot of us come back and share what we're learning because that's really what this is all about. This is a time of great change. I mean, literally, Michael came to me what was it, 3 weeks ago and said, Paul, how are we going to do this? 4 weeks ago. All right. So it's been a month now. This is our third show. And it's just been like trying to brainstorm, how can we make this better? What is the technology required? Luckily, this is literally Zoom. I mean, it's $15 a month. We're talking about learning it. We're adapting and customizing an off-the-shelf tool for a really great purpose. And it just kind of takes a little walking through. I do believe that including the live streaming part of it on Facebook and YouTube will continue to be important. And that's why we've kind of helped bridge some of those gaps. But even if you're just on Zoom, I hope that today's tutorial helped you, use Zoom in a better, more powerful way. So I still have a couple more people here, 2 more people with their hands raised. Coleman, how are you doing? Do you have a question for us?
I'm trying to remember. We have a coffee hour or coffee time after worship. That's a Zoom meeting, but we do our live streaming on YouTube, and we do 2 things. We have the link on our church website, and we have the link in the newsletter we mailed out, or we sent out by email. But we also post the link in the YouTube chat. And when the pastor does the announcements at the end of service, he says, the link to our Zoom coffee hour is in the YouTube chat. If you're watching on a computer, and here are the other places you can find it if you're not. Please join us after this is over. And we've had several people who aren't technology savvy join that. Participation is quite low still. 10 or 12 people maybe on a Sunday after 200 watched our live stream. But we try to put the link out everywhere we can.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I would say most churches are in your boat right now. And this is like in a minute here, this is what I've seen happen. Basically, half the churches out there before COVID-19 had some sort of live streaming system. And it was purchased at that time so that they could reach members of their congregation who maybe were in a senior living center, who were traveling, who couldn't make it. It was a one-way broadcast just so that the members of their church could stay better connected. And they got a camera and they started streaming. They connected it with their audio system, and that was enough, and that was fine. Obviously, now in the world we live in, two-way communications are so much more important. I do think that because of that whole trend and the way things move, people are more familiar with just turning on YouTube. That's still, actually, we do it here in Westchester at our church. We turn on YouTube. In fact, many churches don't even live stream. They actually simply just pre-record a service and do what's called a simulated broadcast. Now, the issue with simulated broadcasts, in my opinion, is that you can't jump. Maybe you can jump into a live Zoom conference, I guess. You could. But it's not live, so it's not as if, you're like, all right, well, we're live streaming, and now we're going to go right into the Zoom session. It would have to be pre-recorded. What a lot of churches like about pre-recorded simulated broadcasts is that there's nothing that could go wrong, right? It's already recorded. It's uploaded to YouTube, and it releases at 10 a.m. on Sunday, right? So it eliminates a lot of the technical barriers, and a lot of churches are doing that. I do think that eventually it's nice to get to the live, real, authentic communication in real time, which you are doing. Is that correct? Are you live? You are live streaming?
We live stream live, and we started 2 days after we decided not to have church that Sunday. It was scary, but we live stream live, and then about Easter we decided to try doing coffee after service and the pastor hosts, and it works out quite well. I think it gives some people some time to chat. The other thing I want to point out is that even when we're back in the building and in this spot we've been talking about for the last 3 weeks, where half the church is in the building and half the church is watching from home still, we're not going to have coffee in the narthex. We're not going to hang around in huddled groups of people that we don't see very often You know, it's not going to happen. We're going to close the church for that. We're going to say, get out of here as fast as you can. Don't talk to anybody on the way out. Call them on the phone when you get home, you know, or something like that. So we're going to still need some kind of, for lack of a better term, small group communication mechanism, you know, and the Zoom breakout rooms, I think, would work great for that if you can figure out how to get everybody into a Zoom meeting.
Yeah. Well, that is something we should cover in our next show for sure. Is how, and this is something that I've been thinking about it a lot, and we talked a little bit about it in the last question. It's not. Yes, there's a familiarity barrier. There's barriers and roadblocks in to getting people into these Zoom sessions, but it's so rewarding once they do. And I think that it's something that I think that Zoom is a very sticky application, meaning that once you use it, it's familiar enough that you felt like I knew what I was doing, because it's just a simple little bar at the bottom and you kind of get what each of the buttons do, and it's not too intimidating. It's really just a bunch of faces inside of a screen. So it makes sense, but it's getting them to it for the first time and then hoping that they'll go again and again, which I do think they will, because it is such a rewarding experience. I don't know if anyone can speak to that, but Zoom itself is just becoming a universally used thing because it is so easy. So I think it's the right choice. If you need to choose a solution, Zoom's probably the right choice. Getting people to the Zoom room and in the easiest possible way, that seems like a perfect topic for next week. So I'm going to give that some thought over the next week, and hopefully everyone else can as well. Obviously, text message, phone calls, emails, buttons on the website, but let's think that through. I'm going to spend some time with that. And then the other thing that I just want to echo is the value of having people turn on their cameras. I don't think people realize how important it is. It's 93% of communication. When you schedule a meeting, you can say, hey, have the cameras turn on automatically. But I think a lot of people still have their cameras off. Maybe they're just not comfortable with it. So there's this whole other side of preparing people to be comfortable with church online. And I remember, Michael, I'll never forget, you were telling me about in Austin, Texas, there's a billboard that says online church. It's a thing. And I feel like that it's called priming in psychology. How do we prime our guests, our attendees, for a good experience? And I've actually studied priming. So maybe we'll revisit some of the statistics in priming. Hey, Dale, I see you have your hand raised here. How are you doing? Do you have a question or a comment for us?
Okay. I was just going to go over what we're doing. I'm at University United Methodist Church in Irvine, California. And, you know, when the whole thing started, like everybody else, we weren't streaming at all. And, you know, the decision was made by the powers at the church and the pastor that we weren't going to allow people in the building in April. And we had the meeting, we had the church service with the half the choir and the pastor. And we live streamed that one. It was kind of interesting. Had the choir stay around, and we taped a bunch of anthems out of the hymn book so that we would have something to put in the broadcast in the future, because it was going to go to a pre-taped format after that Sunday. So at that point, we've gone to pre-taped, played at the normal hour, followed by a Zoom conference as the coffee hour. And they've been using Zoom for Sunday schools and youth functions, and the Boy Scout troop is using it with breakout rooms to break the different troops, different subgroups out of the Scout organization, and having their meetings every month, every week. The choir is having a discussion in place of the rehearsal every week, and we're putting together, we've done one now and we're working on the next couple of weeks, virtual choir presentations that we're building. And we have one member that has a home studio and is doing all the editing work for that. That's quite a project on its own. And we also have we have the trustees looking into changing the license type with Zoom, because we've got a couple different licenses now, and we're looking at whether we can get a single license with multiple hosts that would be less expensive than having multiple licenses that just kind of evolved out of the process in the last month. Don't have an update on that yet. Trustees just started that investigation last Thursday. You've talked about feeding back the Zoom into when you get back into the facility and live streaming. You know, that's something that's interesting. The recommendation of using a cord you can buy from Amazon, while probably will work for some, you'll find some others will have buzz and hum and ground loops created. The solution to that is a simple device. This is the one we use at church. It's the PCDI, I don't know, I got upside down or right side up. It's got XLRs out. It's got RCAs and 1/8 inch in. And
wow.
It's
Dale,
got,
can you send me that? Could you email that to me? I could include that in our next presentation.
it's got transformers in it to break the loop and make it not buzz. There's a couple other companies that make similar PCDI boxes. Some are more expensive than the World one, which isn't exactly a cheap one, and some are less expensive. One of the less expensive ones is the Rapco Horizon, which comes with a little cable on it and then the XLR out right there on the end of the box. It's a mono device only, where this one is a stereo device, which is why we use the stereo one at church. But these are two that carry along in my road box with me when I do shows, and they're very, you know, that's the answer to the buzz and hum problem is always a transformer to isolate the signal and get rid of the ground loop. And so I'll try to send you something on that.
Perfect.
But that's
thank you so much.
That's that. You know, a cable works, you know, about half the time if all your sources are plugged into the same power source. And, you know, then that usually you won't get a buzz. But if there's any cable length difference in the power supply, you're going to get a buzz in there. And the solution to that is always a transformer.
Perfect. Well, please email that to me. We just have a couple seconds left, so or a couple minutes left, so I'm gonna unmute Sam. Thank you, Dale. Please send that to me. I'll include that in our next system. Hi, Dale. How's it going?
You mean Sam?
Oh, sorry, Sam.
Yeah, I'm actually from London, and I've got a couple of points I want to make and a question to ask. I've actually found it's easier to stream to YouTube than to Facebook. I have streamed to Facebook, but Facebook, you can stream to YouTube and copy it across to Facebook, but you can't do it the other way. And also, I find it's very helpful if you do any kind of work using OBS, because you can plug all sorts into it, and it's quite happy. What were you looking at around where we live? It's a place called Play Haringey, and it's several churches, and normally at Pentecost, which is at the end of the month, all the churches, or a lot of churches, close their buildings, and we all come together. Now, of course, this year that's not possible, and so it's we're sort of looking what we can do and making a webinar or something like that. How is there a way of having sort of like churches? I mean, in many ways, say if there was 20 churches, so you would have like the pastor and maybe a group for the singing. On that point of the singing, one of the guys, I just forgot his name, he was saying earlier on that sometimes after church or in the breakout room, they meet up with the musicians and they have a sing together or learn a new song. How did you manage to get around the lag in Zoom?
Well, I will say that, and Chris, maybe you could if you have some experience with this, but with Zoom, I've had people wanting to sing like a chorus in Zoom, and it's not designed for that, and it doesn't really work very well for 5 musicians trying to play together. It really just doesn't work very well. It's not. I'm not sure if it will ever be able to do that, but I've heard time and time again that people say it's 3 musicians trying to play a song together in Zoom. There's just too much. Even though it's not a lot of latency, it's just enough to make it difficult.
Right. I mean, I've had a look, and I mean, you probably heard of Jamulus, and there is 1 or 2 people who are sort of mixing Zoom and Jamulus, get the sound from Jamulus, Zoom with the video, mix it all together, and send it out via OBS.
Jamulus. I haven't heard of that. Maybe would you mind? What is it called? Jamulus?
Jamulus, yes, JAMULUS, and it runs on all 3 platforms. And basically, what it does, it knows there is a lag, so it works on the basis of the worst lag. And then when they come together and the sound comes out of Jamulus, it actually sounds quite good. I listened to something the other day, somebody jamming, and it was 3 musicians from Italy, 2 musicians from Spain, 1 from Germany, a couple of people listening, and they were actually quite synced up.
Wow.
I mean,
well,
the sort of challenge would be the music from Carl Orff, the Fortuna, where everything is very precisely timed.
Should not exceed 40 milliseconds on average. That's pretty incredible. Well, you know what? I'll see if we can work that into an upcoming show, because I have to say that is definitely of interest to a lot of people. I think we're gonna, Chris, let me unmute you here. Or no, go ahead, Chris. What are you thinking?
Sorry. So yeah, again, Zoom is great, and I think it's a great platform for the collaboration now and to get us connected. It is not the end all be all. I don't know if you get paid by Zoom to but their system is limited, and if you really want to go and do multi-sites, we work with a lot of multi-site churches. And if you're talking about multi-site churches sharing their worship experience together, Living as One is one of the best resources out there. Great platform to use. It eliminates a lot of the lags and a lot of the sync errors that you would find on other streaming platforms. So check out Living as One for if you really want to step up into the next level. But it does require fast connections. If you have FiOS available, it's much better. So
interesting. Well, they seem like a good guest to bring on the show in coming weeks. I think we have some kind of more basic stuff to cover next week, which is going to be familiarity, getting people into Zoom, putting those buttons on the website, things of that nature, just to kind of get people. I think right now we're dealing with people who are afraid to turn their webcams on. I think we're having like 50 to 60% of people who can't even get from Facebook to the Zoom conference. So I want to tackle that next week, but we got a whole nother week to plan that show. And I hope many of you come back. This has been our hour. Chris, thank you so much for being here and answering some great questions. That's it, everybody. But, stay in touch. Let's do this again. We got a lot of great ideas. I took a lot of notes. So we're going to be back next Monday. Thank you so much for joining, everybody. Thank you for watching online. This has been too much fun. We got to cap it there.